You wouldn't think it unless you were in this field, but gifts to directors are a pain in the butt. They can raise four types of issues. One, disclosure in the proxies filed with the SEC. Two, taxable income. Three, conflicts of interest. And four, in extreme cases, director independence issues. These issues can rear their heads regardless if the gifts come from outsiders like the company's clients, service providers, or other third parties, or from people inside the company itself like the CEO, any senior officer, or from the company itself. These issues can be raised even if the gift isn't given to the director directly, but rather is directed instead to a person or an institution closely associated with the director, like a family member, a school, or a charity. How do you navigate this minefield? Today on Zippy Point. I'm Brock Romanek, and I'm a big fan of yous. Let me start by distinguishing the terms gifts and perks, because they're not the same thing. Gifts is a term typically used when something is given from third parties, whereas perks are provided by the company. Gifts typically are a one-time or irregular thing. Perks often are some kind of ongoing benefit. Many companies changed their gift receiving policies once the SEC cracked down on what was needed to be disclosed as compensation to directors in proxy statements that are filed with the SEC. They also changed what perks they gave to directors at the same time. This all happened about 15 years ago. So some boards have a strict no gift policy. Many allow just the small stuff, the company branded products, the t-shirts that the directors hate. Here are four things that you need to know about gifts to directors. 1, decide your policy approach. 2, decide your tracking approach. 3, use a gift log. 4, get other departments involved. 1, decide your policy approach. The first thing to decide is whether your director gift policy is a standalone policy or part of the company's code of conduct or business ethics policy. Related to that, you also need to decide whether the policy is principles-based or rules-based, the latter often being triggered by conflicts of interest. An example of a principle-based policy is one that states gifts are acceptable if they are reasonable and customary. That leaves some room for interpretation. The NYSE and NASDAQ, in the context of conflict of interest, require that directors' gifts be addressed by a company's code of ethics. Conflicts come into play only if the gifts are from outside the company. The stock exchanges place pretty strict restrictions on conflicts. You don't want to get into the habit, or even doing it one time, of waiving the limitations and having to publicly disclose that. The director gift policy is simple if the company's policy is that the directors aren't permitted to receive any perks or gifts over a de minimis value, a smart policy to have. These de minimis gifts can be nice to have, little mementos from visits to branches, facilities, anywhere outside headquarters that memorializes the trip, part of the bonding experience if the board goes together. Remember that these gifts should truly be de minimis, not too expensive, so it's not required to be disclosed in the proxy, so it's not scandalous if employees or the media found out. Maybe your policy sets forth the typical circumstances in which that directors may receive a gift, holidays, birthdays, retirement, or other celebration circumstances. It's a good idea to limit gift giving from the company to only specified positions, such as from the CEO or the board chair or the lead director. Build in some flexibility here too, so that if a director in the normal course visits an office location and receives a de minimis gift from the staff there, it's okay to accept it. Here's the most important part of the policy. You should state that directors should notify the corporate secretary or whomever is tasked with tracking this kind of thing to immediately report that gift upon receipt to allow that person to determine whether the gift was permissible or whether it should be returned. 2, decide your tracking approach. So you need to track these gifts for a number of reasons, including your disclosure controls and procedures. Will your tracking system be top down or bottom up? Top down or bottom up? Top down means that you're more heavily involved, asking people who interface with directors, did you give them any gifts? Bottom up means that someone in another office, someone in finance, treasury, or internal audit looks at every invoice. Then when they bubble up questions to you as the person, the expert in this area, perhaps a lawyer, about whether there should be a tax or disclosure consequence. If it's bottoms up, you may want to provide an informal set of guidelines to the folks that look at the invoices with a bunch of examples as part of that set of guidelines. Let them know that you're not worried about the nominal things, the token gifts. Some companies are more lax. They track gifts through a periodic, maybe a quarterly survey of the directors asking about the gifts. I think this is too risky of a practice. You really need real-time tracking to stay on top of what is happening. But maybe this quarterly survey can be in addition to having directors notify the designated person when they receive it. So that's a second layer. It's a second layer net to capture any gifts that the directors forgot to bring to your attention. 3, use a gift log. The tracking system should include a gift log in which there is a description of the item, the date on which it was provided, the context in which the item was given, and the purchase price or approximate estimate of the gift's value. 4, get other departments involved. So you're going to need to let your compensation, tax, and accounting teams know of the gift items at year end so they can concur with the treatment for tax, accounting, and disclosure purposes.